And now, podcasting from the sun-scorched desert Southwest, weighing in at a combined total of 340 pounds, Brad Winchester, Tyler McDowell-Blanken, are Gimmick Infringement.
Welcome, everybody, to the Gimmick Infringement Podcast. I am Brad Winchester, and with me, as always, are my tag team partners, Tyler McDowell-Blanken and George Romero. Today, we have a special episode. I just got done roasting the Niners. I just got done saying bleep you to the Chiefs. I hate everybody. I almost wore my Green Bay hat instead of my campfire coffee hat. We're heading into the Super Bowl. P&V, besides me being pissed off, a little bit pissed off, jealous mostly. How you two doing?
George, you got to lead us off, man. I'm doing great because you're here. How are you feeling?
I'm doing good. I was just telling Brad, positive vibes only today. I need good vibes. Yes, they got dusted by Kansas City. Hopefully today ends well. It's funny because as a coach, I'm more nervous about the games I can't control than the games I can. So coaching, I love no nerves beforehand because I've done the prep. Now I don't know what they're doing, so I'm more nervous for some reason.
Well, I can tell you that I think you have a pretty good chance.
There you go.
I was gonna say in Purdy we trust, Perry High School's own.
Yes.
Well, George, that's a great segue for us. It's been a minute since you've been on. A lot has changed, a lot of accomplishments in your life. You are a homeowner now. Big congratulations to you and Tony. You are doing your student teaching. You're obviously coaching football. Fill us in, man. What's been going on in the life of George Romero over the last year?
No, definitely a lot. Like you said, the new house, I'm broadcasting from Casa Romero right now, which is pretty awesome. And yeah, I was able to sit in at Sunnyside and do some practicum hours. It's completely different. It's different learning about teaching and then going and being in a classroom and seeing how it's done. But
what does that feel like going from, reading essays or having class discussions about teaching, but then actually being in it with real live students?
It's so much. It's so much to learn that's not taught.
Yes.
And
yes.
But I love it. Like being in it, bullets flying, pretty much. And interacting with students. Kind of meeting them at where they are and kind of coming from the perspective of, I want to get this out of you. I want you to learn. I want you to want to learn. And it's kind of difficult to get your standing or see where you kind of belong. But once you kind of find your voice, I think it works out pretty well. The first couple days I was kind of like jelly legs almost, very nervous to even interact with students. But once I got into it, I think it's a lot easier just kind of knowing yourself, knowing what you're bringing to the table, and allowing students to kind of pick up what I'm putting down. So I'm really excited for it.
That's awesome, man. Figuring out who you are in the classroom it's a thing. It's a process, and going, what am I comfortable with? And how much of myself am I willing to show in order to connect with my students? All of that stuff is a balance. I got to ask, how you feeling at the end of these days? Because I know starting out student teaching, at the end of the day, it's really surprising when you take over and you're doing the full, most of the work thing, that at the end of the day, my student teaching experience was, I did that. And then I got home and it was like, I need to go to bed now. So, I don't even have a choice.
Yeah. Well, so right now I wasn't totally overtaking the class, which was nice. And I was in a resource class.
Okay, cool.
So a lot more hands-on with students, kind of walking them through how things are done, or like trying to get them to meet their goals for the day. But the way it worked out, I actually had to go to my full-time job right after. So yeah, I was beat. And then like Wednesdays, I have class at night, like a 3-hour class. So it was a lot. And I tried to cram everything as quickly as possible. Get it done in like 3 weeks, all my hours, which I was successful in that, but definitely tired, like just drained, because it takes so much more out of you than you think. Or like anyone that isn't in the teaching profession, I guess they don't realize that it's consistent. Like you have to be on your game at all times, and there's no off to it.
Right.
So it's a lot, but it was really fun. Like,
I think you just summed up teaching with that sense. It's a lot, but it's so fun, right? Like Tyler, I know you could speak to that too.
Oh no, 100%. I'm so happy for you, George. I'm just beaming over here hearing about your experience, and I'm always interested to learn about student teaching. I didn't really have student teaching. I went through a program, but it's a whole thing. So I just sort of, like, my first year in the classroom was really like my first time leading a room with any sort of idea or somewhat an idea of what I was doing. I know former students listening to this are like, oh yeah, that makes sense. He had no student teaching. He was a total rookie. So hearing about you guys and what that experience like is really cool for me, George. Obviously, you're going to be an amazing teacher. Before we get into wrestling, you are also passionate about coaching. Football is your sport of choice. What was it like your first year on staff at Tanque Verde High School? I still have my football, which I meant to give Brad this week. I saw Brad live and in person, and I saw you, George. We're going to get into that very, very soon. But I remember going to that Glendale prep game. Your squad won. Super proud of you. But like I said, before we get into the grabs, how was this season coaching? Any lessons, any takeaways for you?
That you can't go into, because this is my first year being at Tanque Verde High School and also being an offensive coordinator and play calling. So it's difficult when it's on your shoulders. Obviously, I really love my head coach, Jeff Bullnow, very defensive-minded guy, but also sees like my heart in, we're going to add tight ends, we're going to add fullbacks, we're going to go ground and pound old school football. And it works at the 2A level, which is pretty awesome because we're very adaptable, and being able to host our first playoff game in school history, that was huge for us.
That's awesome.
And huge deal. Congrats.
Yeah. And then taking the number 2 team in the state all the way to overtime and then losing on the 2-point conversion. I mean, I learned so much this year, offensively, defensively, just everything. And going in, I thought I would have some idea of what I would want to do and how I'd want to run things, but we just like having to be adaptable. Also similar to being in the classroom, finding yourself, finding your voice, and even if that means taking kind of a supporting role, as wherever you can fit to benefit the team. And it's been a blessing going over here and kind of learning from Jeff and having him kind of mold and really also critique. I think sometimes that's a huge deal, is where if you're getting good feedback, not just to like bring you down or kind of take you down a peg. It's, I want you to be better. I want you to be the best self you can be. So maybe give honest feedback. So that was huge.
Yeah. And even to your point, George, how to receive that feedback. It's so crucial, right, Brad? As teachers, that's a huge part of the job, is how you receive that feedback, what you do with it. It's paramount if you want to have any longevity in the game.
Absolutely. It's part of our evaluation process as much as anything, but it's also, we want to do what's best for kids. And honestly, the best feedback that I get, it comes from the kids. They have great ideas about what to do and what they would like to do and how they want to learn. And sometimes you got to check them on it, but
And they're so honest, right? That is one
yeah,
thing you can count on kids for being. They are honest, maybe to a
100%.
fault, maybe to a fault.
Sometimes, yeah.
Certain days.
But sometimes they're like, you know what? I think it would be better if we did this. We would all rather do that. You just give them the opportunity to show you what they know. And I'm a big believer in letting them do really difficult things and allowing them the chance to fail and learn from it, rather than forcing them to do difficult things that they're going to fail for no reason other than to say, well, it's for a grade. And we know that can't happen. But man, kids are so resilient, surprising, and smart. And their feedback, as well as our peers, is just so valuable. It's why we keep doing what we do.
100%. I love you guys so much. This is going to be a great episode. I really love our segments, and it is time for one that is near and dear to my heart. Let's get into it. I have a hot take. It's time for Hot Take Time. Hit the music.
And now it's time for Hot Take Time. Spicy.
All right, guys. So this is going to lead right into our AEW discussion. I even have my own pseudo speech prepared. Here we go. For the second year in a row, AEW returned to Phoenix, Arizona, the most magical place on earth. All three of us were in attendance once again. I've attended several live events in my day, including SummerSlam 03 at then America West Arena, now the Footprint Center. I've attended at least 2 to 3 SmackDowns and a handful of house shows, including WWE ECW at Celebrity Theater during Glendale. The main event was RVD and Sabu versus Kevin Thorne and someone I'm forgetting. Yeah, that's a deep cut. We're talking probably 05, 06. CM Punk was even on that show. Pepsi Phil. Anyway, after 72 plus hours of thought, my hot take is that this past week's AEW Dynamite and Rampage combo was the greatest wrestling event I've ever attended. I'm still beaming about it. I want to talk about these shows with you guys. So I figure now is as good of a time as any to get into it. How do we want to proceed? Do we want to give any exposition? Do we want to go right into the card? Obviously, I want to hear what you guys love from the show, what maybe you didn't love. I want to leave it up to you guys first. How do you want to go about this?
Well, first of all, thank you for sharing your hot take. I don't know that it's a hot take if it's within yourself. I'm not sure that it's a hot take. My hot take is this is the best show I've ever seen. Come on, man. The 100%. Hot take would be that. No, I'm not going to say it. I was going to be negative, and I'm being positive today. So we're not going to do it because George told me only positive vibes. So I think we should just get into it. I think we should just go from the beginning. But the beginning means we got to see a Ring of Honor taping. And here's what my takeaway was. How cool was it that we got to see multiple back-to-back in a row, multiple women's matches to start the show, to get into it before Tony Khan came out to address the crowd in one of the funniest moments of the year that nobody saw. Tyler, George, this was my favorite part of the show. That's my hot take. The best part of the show nobody saw was Tony Khan coming out to say, you guys were the best crowd we had, or an incredible crowd we had last year. I knew you were going to bring the fire. We're counting down. We got about 2 minutes left, 3 minutes left. And Justin Roberts having to go to the end of the ropes and go, there are 30 seconds before air, and had to basically like play off Tony Khan and be like, boss, get out. We're going live in like 3 seconds. Was so amazing that he wanted to come out there and talk to us, but also it was like, hey, get out of here. It's showtime. We don't want your goofiness to be the first thing people see out on the stage. I thought it was wonderful. The whole night was a blast, man. I think Ring of Honor doing the women's matches first was really, really cool. And then TK coming out to address the crowd was great.
Yeah, it was fantastic. George, what do you think before we got into the main card? Just being back at Footprint, you guys were awesome. You even brought the voice of GI, Alf Bergeson, with you, so you had to travel much further than myself and my homie Dominic from school did. So, George, from your vantage point again, before getting into Dynamite, what did you think about just being back in Phoenix at Footprint for your second ever AEW show?
No, I loved it. Like I think this experience was way better for, we'll get into reasons later, but, no, definitely even Ring of Honor. I think Ring of Honor really brought it, and they announced early that it was going to be 4 matches, 4 women's matches for the future ROH women's
Women's
TV
TV
title.
title. Yeah.
Yeah, and I thought that was really cool. You know, one of the first things I did when I came back, I talked to my wife and I was like, yeah, there were 4 women's matches to start the card for the night. And they got the people going. They got the people ready for Dynamite taping. And they actually brought out some pretty big names too. Like Kiera Hogan was one that I wasn't expecting on ROH. Queen Aminata, that was big. And then
Sure.
Mercedes
Huge
Martinez.
fan.
Diamante.
And Mercedes.
Diamante, yeah.
Right, Diamante
Yeah.
versus Kiera.
I was like, wow, what
I
a
believe
good.
are a couple IRL.
Yeah.
Like, that was
Yeah.
pretty neat to see them square off.
You think they were working out any like marital frustrations?
It was, yeah, they are so talented.
You
And
didn't put away the dishes and then a shotgun drop kick.
yeah. What if low key one of my favorite couples in wrestling. Please continue,
Yeah.
George. I'm right there with you on all of this.
No, it was like Ring of Honor, and then we failed to mention that yes, Ring of Honor started at 5 and went to 6, but that's a different story. Ring of Honor, though,
Positive vibes only. The three of
yes.
us agree to this. Yes,
Ring of Honor really brought it, and going into Dynamite was really fun, and just being in Footprint. I'm not a huge Suns fan, so that didn't really get to me. But I was kind of like looking. I was like telling Tyler when we got to our seats, I was like, Kevin Durant and Steph Curry have been on this floor. Like, I'm so excited to be here right
they
now.
walked through that tunnel right there.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, getting into the card, guys, we also saw Trish Adora on Ring of Honor, which was really cool. I think she's in for a big year as well. But getting into the card, I'll just run through it and then we can, highlight what we want to highlight. Swerve and Hangman tore the roof off the joint. And I'm just going to go against my plan. We got to pause to talk about this match. Forget what I said about 10 seconds ago. This was, I think, such a wise decision to open the show this way. To me, what often makes a successful card in its most basic form is having a great match to kick off the show and ending in a really hot way. Like if you can sandwich the show where it kicks off awesome and then ends on such a high note, chances are people are going to feel good about what they saw, what they paid for. And that happened here. Swerve versus Hangman reaches time. So no official winner. Of course, that then sets up the triple threat main event at Revolution. Swerve v Hangman v Joe. Guys, the crowd was absolutely electric for this match. The chemistry between Hangman and Swerve cannot go unstated here. What are your memories of seeing this live?
Well, I have multiple memories from this. From our angle, we were a slightly different angle. We were higher up. We were row 16 and 108. So we were just behind you guys, about probably 18 equivalent rows back. And there were a few spots. The Swerve over the rope spot. I don't know about you guys, but seeing that on TV where they catch the whole thing in flight is so different than watching a person disappear over the ropes into the void. Like you don't know what happened after that, but it is an unbelievable thing to witness live. I just remember Swerve jumping over the top. I remember the table breaking and the Swerve going to look for other tables. This match was so good. It started a little slow and then just built and built and built. To me, it was the perfect pro wrestling match. It's like everything I wanted. It was storytelling. It was slow. Everything made sense. It had great psychology. It was all really, really good. One of my favorite matches on Dynamite ever, the 30-minute time limit draw. As soon as they called 5 minutes, I was like, oh, yeah, this is a draw for sure. And I don't care because it was perfect. It's the only way that they could continue telling the story, because Swerve does have those wins over Hangman. And a lot of people were like, well, it doesn't matter if they wrestle each other or whatever. Yeah, but the rankings came back. So the rankings reset at the beginning of the year. So those wins don't mean anything in 2024. So I loved that, to figure out who the number one contender was going to be. And then this was a great way to set up the triple threat, which, man, that match is going to be so violent. Joe, Hangman, a heel Hangman.
Yes. We got the double turn in this match, essentially, right? The Phoenix, yes. I haven't watched it back. I know you guys have. I'll defer to you. But
so good.
Being in the crowd, I would say, and George, let me know because we were sitting next to each other. For Phoenix that night, 70 to 75% pro Swerve.
Yeah.
And then a healthy 20 to 25 or 25 to 30 pro Hangman. It was a double turn, especially given the post match where Hangman refused to go an extra 5 minutes. It's a big deal. Big storyline development, Brad. You're absolutely right. Yeah, George, you had on your Hangman tee. Talk to us. How are you feeling?
Oh, I love Hangman.
He got his match.
Yeah, this match was peak AEW. I think this is what AEW fans really love about it. I know Swerve had a quote saying that just because we don't do like talking segments doesn't mean we're not telling a story. And that's exactly what they did in the ring. Like, they told a freaking story. It was so, it was violent, but also not as violent as their Texas Death, obviously. But it was, these guys were putting on a freaking show. Like, and the live theater element, Brad and I had talked about it on the way back when when the table broke kind of unexpectedly. Right. You just got to roll with it. So Swerve goes around and finds another table.
Didn't miss a beat.
Yeah, and they kind of play it off too, because there's a little bit more as he's going to find a table. Prince Nana kind of gets the crowd looking one way.
Amazing.
Like, it was.
You remember when he danced to heel Swerve to get him back into the ring?
That was my favorite part of the match. I was going to say it because it's just so silly. It's
his health bar was restored.
But getting him to get back in the ring only to get baseball slid kicked back out immediately.
Yeah. Heel Hangman.
Oh, so good. It was so good.
Yeah, and this new Hangman is, I really love it. And like you said, Swerve calling him out for 5 more minutes and him taking the satisfaction and kind of laughing off like, no, you had to beat me. You didn't, we tied. That's not you beating me. Like, I'm still the number one contender. So, and us in the crowd, we were chanting 5 more minutes or let them fight. Yep. And as soon as Shivani steps up, I'm like, oh, well, they're definitely going to go 5 more minutes. They're going to get him back in the ring. And then they switch it. Okay, well, now it's just a triple threat, which is something that I believe Tyler called at the restaurant saying, oh, well, I think it's actually going to be just a tie, or we could probably see this thing go to time. And good call. But yeah, this just makes me more excited for Revolution.
You know, watching it back and seeing it live and watching the crowd reaction, people were legit upset that it wasn't going to, that Phoenix was going to be robbed of the 5 more minutes. So I thought it was really funny watching it back and just seeing people going like, oh, come on. It's like, you just got to see, I wasn't even disappointed. I was like, all right, cool. Because we got to see one of the best Dynamite matches of all time. That's really saying something considering how many good matches there have been.
Exactly. And this solidified it for me. Once we got this match, I was like, okay, yeah, like feelings been restored. We're up. Like, this is going to be one show that we're going to remember. So I want to run through the rest of the card and then hear what you guys think. Timeless Tony Storm defeated Red Velvet. Love both of them, especially Red Velvet. I just want good things for her this year. I hope she picks up wins. I hope she becomes a contender for one of the 2 singles women's gold. But this match was fun. We got an awesome trios match in which the BCC defeated the Stars of CMLL. Seeing BCC live, just mere steps from us, including Bryan Danielson, was very surreal. I can't wait to hear what George thinks about that. Takeshita defeated Chris Jericho. And of course, in the main event, I feel so blessed that Phoenix was chosen to be the city to host this main event. Sting and Darby Allin became tag team champs. They defeated Big Bill and Ricky Starks in that really, really fun tornado tag match. Guys, I love all of this. There were no misses for me on this card. Going back to my controversial hot take to kick us off, what really put this show above any I've attended in my life was Sting. I don't recall ever being that emotional at a
Yeah.
wrestling show. I've shared with Brad and our dozens and dozens of viewers that I go to the movie theater now and I have a hard time controlling my tears when there's a really impactful scene. And that continued now. It's launched into wrestling events for me. When Sting came out, the entrance, the call from Roberts, this is the icon, this is Sting. And seeing all the Sting merch and signs and cardboard cutouts in the audience, I really got emotional, fellas. I'm still emotional and I feel the goosies just thinking about it. I did not think I would ever get to see Sting live.
Yes.
Definitely not in Arizona. The fact that we were able to see this just mere weeks before his retirement, it was worth the price of admission. I just can't believe I saw one of my heroes, one of my childhood heroes, live and in person.
Yeah.
I can't believe I saw him crack Ricky Starks with a garbage can, mere steps in front of me. This was fantastic.
Several times.
Several times.
Yeah.
I like you said it as though it happened once, and he was just
Several-
beating that man down with that trash can.
And Sting just jumping off of parts of the arena. It was everything I wanted, and then some. So many boxes for me were checked for this Dynamite. Final thing I want to say before I kick it to you, Brad. I also love that we were witness to a major storyline development with the Bucks crashing the party, beating up Sting, beating up Darby, beating up Sting's kids, the blood on the white suits. And George, you mentioned earlier about Hangman turning heel, and that was a character shift was pretty sorely needed. I think for the Bucks, you could argue the same. They needed something. I think we were kind of over the tassel era Bucks, them leaning into being heel EVPs. They don't think they're heels, but totally heel EVPs. This was great. Perfect way to end the show and to get the audience hooked to come back next week. This is fantastic, guys. I love the card. I'm still beaming about this main event, and I want to know how you felt about it. Brad, what say you?
So when I watched you, I looked down to see how you were going to react when Sting started getting closer, and it was really cool to see from where I was, because I could see everything that was happening. But watching Sting get really, really close and then get closer, and then all of a sudden he's 10 feet away from you, maybe
if that.
Yeah. And you had your phone out when he was over there and you filmed part of it, but it was when you put it away and you were just sort of clapping while it was happening. Your mouth went from here to here and here to here. You were beaming. Your teeth were glowing from the top of the building. Seeing you that happy made my entire night. That made it worthwhile. I was like, oh man, I wish I was down there. Don't get me wrong, but I was also like, I'm so glad I get to see this part, because I wouldn't have seen it if I were George. You were right up on top of this too, but you couldn't see Tyler's reaction. That was as cool as anything of the night until Sting got 10 feet away from us when he worked his way up toward us. And I was like, holy shit, what's happening? Did I just get super lucky with this? He was one of the guys, man. Like I grew up, and, wrestling when I was really little was always part of my life. My brother and I would watch it Saturday mornings and then sometimes Saturday nights. And I remember Surfer Sting, Surfer Sting ruled. The blue and the red and the white and all the different yellow, all the different colors on his face. He always looked so cool. He had the flat top. Everybody wanted that haircut back in the day. And then, I fell away from wrestling. My brother stopped watching it because he got older. I think he just got interested in girls and getting better at basketball. And then I stopped watching. By the time I was in junior high, 6th grade junior high, I was like, are we back? Monday Night Wars. And Sting became Crow Sting. Inarguably my favorite persona of the WCW era, I loved Chris Jericho, but outside of Jericho, it had to be Sting for me in WCW. And then like Stone Cold was untouchable at the time in WWF, but, and then The Rock later on, but which I'm sure we'll be talking about later on in the show. But seeing Sting in person in 2024, right a month before his final match of all time, in the biggest moment of his AEW career, we got to be there live. We got to be mere feet from the man, the icon, the legend, all of those things. I'm still thinking about it going like, man, we are so lucky, because no disrespect to all the talent involved, but last year's card, not a great card. It felt like we're not sure what's going to happen here in Phoenix, so let's just put on a show. And this time they were like, no, that crowd was nuts last time for a card that wasn't that big of a deal. So we're gonna light them up with two absolute classics, and make sure that they go home happy. And my goodness, I do think the energy in the arena was incredible. I couldn't get over it. That pop when it went 1, 2, 3 on Ricky was one of the loudest things I've ever heard in person. And I've been to some hockey games that have mattered, and those places blow up, like explode when there's a goal, especially one in overtime. I've never heard anything like that. That was amazing. And it just keeps reinforcing to me that you can tell a story without having to do promo work, without having to do silly stuff around it. It can just be I want to fight you. This is our match. We're taking the titles because we're better than you. That crowd is proof that you can tell that story and not have to tell it directly. As you said about Swerve in his, we're just telling stories differently. WWE is really good at that other stuff. They're great at it. They've mastered it. They've perfected it. We're doing something else over here, and it's great. It doesn't have to be the same as what they're doing. That's the whole alternative point. And I think that sentence, what happened on Wednesday this week, is exactly what they meant when they said restore the feeling, because it felt like, I don't know, it felt like 3-4 years ago in AEW, where it just felt us against the world, and we're going to put on incredible wrestling. And they did that. And we got to see one of the greatest of all time in an incredible moment. Really happy with it. George, what were your thoughts?
And that, just to kind of piggyback off what you were saying earlier, I remember, and I shared this story with Tyler like earlier, a few days earlier, that growing up, my dad would send me gifts. And one year he had sent me a picture signed by Juventud Guerrera because he got to meet some WCW. Yeah, so he got to meet some WCW talent, and in the box that he had sent me was a Sting mask, kind of like the Gene Simmons like Kiss mask, but it was Sting, like hair and face paint. And just kind of thinking back, I was like, I think I had to be at least like 8.
Wow.
I was like 8 years old, and I was like, and I got to see that guy right before he retired. Like I told my wife the same thing, like getting to see that, you don't understand like the wrestling history that was in front of me. And to another extent, I don't think we touched on it enough, I got to see Bryan Danielson, someone that we thought a few years ago would never wrestle again. And seeing the BCC come out, that was pretty amazing too, because I was like, oh my God, Danielson's one of my favorites, and he's 2 feet away from me. Like, and he can be a heel all he wants, but the only person he went to shake hands with was a child. So I was like, see, there's good in him. He can.
We know the real American
exactly.
Dragon. You're not gonna fake this.
But, and talking about that match too, the CMLL BCC, that was such good lucha versus like that whole be real shtick. Like, we're going to do real grapples, real wrestling against this high flying lucha style. That was awesome to see.
Cool mix.
Yeah.
Really cool.
Great contrast.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
Jones.
Just getting back to Sting, seeing that match. As soon as we had said, or they had announced tornado tag match, I was like, okay, they might come out into the crowd.
Yeah.
And once they come out
They
and
sure did.
start their brawl, yeah, like it was pretty amazing to see. And I was telling Tyler, I was rewatching, and I was like, "Oh, I see Tyler and his dad
Yeah.
right there." Like they
Yeah,
get
shout out
into
to
a
my
shot,
pops. My pops is with
and
us too.
then
Yeah.
they show. So they pan away, and it's the back view of our seats, and you can see me pointing, but not in the direction the camera's going. It's because I can see Sting walking up the stairs, and I can see Brad and Alf looking down, like, "Oh my god!"
Yep,
like
that's it.
he's
I was
coming.
definitely going.
Yeah,
Like, yeah.
He's here.
yeah. And I was like, "Oh, this is great because at least he's going right towards you guys." Like
Yeah.
you get, and they just bringing that atmosphere, like of like you said, just real wrestling kind of. I think more not as production based. Just we're gonna have the in ring work speak for itself. Uh, that really kind of hit home because yeah, this entire card was real wrestling and just so much fun. I can't remember the last time I rewatched, and just kind of thought I was so lucky to be in that building at that time.
Yes.
That's how I felt too, G. Like
Yes.
I owe Tony Khan money.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like I
Yes.
need to give him like some
Yeah.
gratuity on what we saw and all the talent. I need to give each of them gratuity.
I gotta say there was a few other things. The production team. So yesterday we had a conversation about the production, like where are the chords, all that stuff. But one of the things that I appreciated watching it back is how they make everything feel so much closer than it really is when they start fighting out in the crowd. Because like we know that aisle behind the floor seating and the tunnel is probably like, I don't know what, 15, 20 feet wide. It's a pretty big gulf between the fans and then that walking area. Because if they got to get like an emergency cart through, they got to have the room to do it. So it's a pretty good sized space. But when you watch it on TV, they shoot it like from behind the fan, so the heads are right there, and it just looks like it's, oh man, they're fighting in seats and stuff. And it's like, no, it's not quite like that. They made it fill out, and I'm like, how do they make that safe? And then I saw it, and it's like, oh, that's really cool. They definitely have room to work and still be right on top of everybody. It's awesome. Another thing too, George, to your point about Danielson, I thought the same thing during the Rampage taping when we got to see Saraya, who we thought was also done forever after her injury, and how surreal it was to see that. We got to see the turn for Ruby. Finally, it was awesome.
Yeah.
That the whole night was great. Heel Bucks. I shout out to Will Washington, who popped me when the music was playing for the Bucks. He was walking around the floor and he did like the plink plink on the piano drop in the beginning. He was just air pianoing around the whole crowd. I just thought it was really funny. It was a really cool moment. I was desperately trying to figure out production elements during some of the show and during like the downtime. But it was just, I can't believe we got to see all of that live. I still can't get over it.
It's unbelievable. And to cap off the night, speaking of Rampage, because that's how our night concluded, Chris Statlander and Willow Nightingale go over and leave as some of the biggest stars in the company.
Yep.
All of my boxes were checked, guys. Danielson, Swerve and Hangman, Sting,
And Stokely got a raise.
Stokely got a raise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Check the timeline for more details on that. It was just, I'm still beaming about it, guys. I'm so excited about this year for AEW. And I'm also excited about spring being on the horizon. It's nearly mid-February, which means it's almost my favorite time of the year. Check out our latest sponsor, Grand Patio, to make sure you're all set for the great weather and great memories that await. For over 20 years, Grand Patio has partnered with renowned designers to create collections that are equal parts luxurious and livable, the kind that can transform your backyard into a personal oasis. Their products include umbrellas, recliners, gazebos, sectionals, and much more. Visit our affiliate link, grandpatio.sjv.io/GIPod. Once again, that's grandpatio.sjv.io/GIPod to shop their collection today. All right, guys. So lots of AEW love. It was also a really big newsworthy week in WWE. We say that literally every single Monday.
Yes.
But this week it's particularly true. I just want to ask you guys a quick question here. Thursday, we saw the WrestleMania press conference in Vegas, which wasn't so much. I was expecting a traditional press conference. This was more like a continuation of a SmackDown or Raw, if you will, but nonetheless, it was entertaining. Fellas, what did you make of the spectacle that was this press conference? More specifically, how are we feeling about The Rock's family tree PowerPoint and what appears to be a pretty big heel turn from the Great One?
I'm good with it. They pivoted. This is obviously not what the plan was. It's very, very clearly not what the plan was. And I'm kind of okay with it. I hate that we, at the moment, aren't finally getting the Rock versus Roman match we all wanted. I really hate that. However, I have a feeling that that is going to be a turn that happens at the end of that match. If we do, in fact, get that tag match, which will more than likely happen at Elimination Chamber. Right? Like, I mean, it's a WrestleMania press conference, but ultimately we got a pay-per-view between now and then. And The Rock is pissed at Cody, and Cody's getting his face slapped off. Cody's challenging Roman. He made his decision. I could totally see them beating The Rock and Roman taking the pin in some fashion, and then The Rock getting mad and giving him rock bottom, or The Rock eating the pin, Roman getting mad, and The Rock giving Roman the rock bottom, and then sets up their match for head of the table. But then we'd have the 2-night double main event for Roman, which I don't think anybody would be really mad at, even though you know what, if I think back about what happened a few months ago where I was like totally opposed to it, that was before Seth got hurt. So CM Punk is hurt. Seth is hurt. I at this point, I don't really care where they go on the card. I just want them to be healthy. So I especially Seth. CM Punk, we knew the injury was probably going to happen sooner than later as age catches up with him. But hopefully he can get back. I want to see the man get a WrestleMania main event. I mean, that's the story that I want to see get finished. That's like 15 years in the making. All of us want to see that. As far as the press conference goes, the fallout of the press conference, I think, was awesome. I liked the backstage stuff where Rock was telling off Triple H. I thought that was cool. I don't like these UFC style press conferences that are just, I don't like these things, man. They could have done that at their show and set it up instead of doing a separate thing. Because you know what their show is going to be this week on Monday night? It's just going to be at 30, 40 minutes of clips. So that's the only part that I don't like about them doing something like this, is that they're going to use it as content for their show, because they have to now. They have to, because what would you be your guess? My guess is 75%, 80% of the people that watch the show wouldn't have seen the press conference. That's probably conservative. So they're going to have to show those clips so people know what happened to get to that point. So for that reason, I hate it. For the setting up the story, I thought it was cool. I thought it was different. It made it feel authentic and real, which doesn't happen in the WWE very often. So I really liked that element of it. George, what do you think?
Yeah, it was different. I had a couple thoughts going into it because I thought it was kind of cheap. They were definitely piggybacking off of having the Super Bowl there. So they were like, oh, well, let's get those fans and offer a free press conference.
In a fight city, too. In a UFC fight city, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I definitely thought, because they haven't announced where next year's WrestleMania was, I thought they were going to announce, oh, WrestleMania is coming to Vegas next year. And going in, I think it was like 2 minutes before I had seen the press conference was going to go live, I saw on Twitter or X that The Rock kept saying in multiple different like interviews, because he was on Super Bowl Radio Row, he kept saying like, oh, well, I'm a long game thinker. This wasn't thought to be short term. This is going to be a long term thing. I definitely was like, okay, well, I don't know if he's going to turn heel, but it's going to be Cody Roman this year. I think the biggest thing is, don't have The Rock go in with no in-ring work to this WrestleMania. Let's go to next WrestleMania and let's sell that for a year. Roman versus Rock at the very next WrestleMania. Because I don't think, no offense to like Philly or anything, I don't think that's where you want to have that story. Like last year would have made so much sense in LA, because then you get Hollywood Rock against Roman, and it was just, I felt kind of like you had said, Brad, it was to me kind of a waste doing it on TV, because now you're going to have to recap everything on the shows. But it was kind of like, yeah, we got the slap out of it, but what else did we get?
That we did.
Like Becky versus Rhea might be at WrestleMania is what we got, because she's tough.
Wild comment there.
Well,
Wild comment.
Definitively.
Yeah,
put it on the Wikipedia.
I think
Put it on the Wikipedia.
Yeah,
hot take. Becky's winning the chamber, but
that's a hot take.
But other than that, like, they didn't have Io versus Bailey get any time, which I was kind of upset, because I was like, oh well, they're an actual main event. Like, she earned her main event time.
Not even on the promotional materials, like not even on the Mania. Such an egregious error for the year for Bailey. It's to the comment, and then I'll let you finish here. I didn't mean that. I meant I meant what Becky said to Rhea, not that the main event. It's time for mommy to find out what it's like to be a bottom. Hearing her say that was one of the wildest things that came out of that press conference. I think that got underplayed because of the slap, but I was like, oh, okay, that's going to get some traction.
Yeah. And I do like the dynamic of both Seth and Roman. Like, they have to be friends off camera, because they were saying, like, I loved Roman comes out, Seth saying, oh, well, you finally showed up to work.
Yeah.
Well, like, they're giving real jabs to each other, which is nice, because they're champions that don't get along. And they directly conflict with each other, because they're two top dogs in the company and you can only have one. And Roman's the top guy, but and I don't know how many times Roman looked over and was like, oh, well, you're second best. That's your second title. You're
that's the
silver medal. Yeah, that's the B champ. And Cody's story doesn't get finished unless he goes after the big boy belt. So I like that they're going with the Cody versus Roman, but you could definitely tell it was a swerve. Like, I think the fan backlash did catch up to them, to the point where they're like, okay, people want this now, then let's give it to them. But I just hope that I am not sitting there on WrestleMania Sunday and getting a text from Tyler that they didn't have Cody finish the story.
What are we doing? Yes to everything you guys said. Everything you mentioned, I think, is incredibly valid. The spectacle of it all, the questions we have about what this means for Chamber and for night 1 and night 2 of Mania. What I do just want to add quickly is Bianca Belair and her path to WrestleMania is something that I think we should keep a close eye on. She is so over wherever she goes, just absolute presence for days and days. So it's nice to see her spotlighted. I know she's obviously got the show with the hubby Montez on Hulu, which I did watch episode 1 of, pretty entertaining. But I'm really eager to see, does her WrestleMania include Jade in some capacity? We got the moment with them in the Rumble match. Are we thinking Jade and Bianca team up and maybe chase tag gold? Are we thinking this is the time to go with Jade versus Bianca singles? Hopefully their tag name isn't Bade. They deserve so much better than that. So I just want to keep an eye on Bianca, because she's obviously a face. Exactly. She's obviously a face of the company, and I'm just glad that she received her flowers, even though, unlike her peers who were at this presser, her path to WrestleMania doesn't seem very clear at the moment, which she addressed in her promo, which I thought was good.
Yeah, I have no idea what's going to happen there, but if those two don't lock horns, I'm going to be upset. Like, that's a no-brainer. No-brainer match.
Probably next
Mhm.
year. Yeah, it's gonna be big business whenever they do it. We also got the big business announcement in AEW. I can't believe I didn't mention
Yeah.
that. Mercedes Moné is coming to AEW.
in Boston.
Yes,
Exactly.
and in the
I-
background you can see the Boston spelled 2 S's with the
Yes.
money sign.
Yes. It's happening,
And
guys.
I don't think it's
w-
going to be it, man. I don't think that's it. I think Will just had his last match in New Japan. Okada just had his last match in New Japan.
That's-
Back to back, Rainmaker, Money, Sasha. Like,
That's-
we're getting it.
yeah, Alf brought that up on our ride back. He was like, Rainmaker is money, right?
Yep.
Like that's where that gimmick comes from. So why
Yep.
wouldn't it be Okada? And
Twen-
I was like, that
20.
makes so much sense. But it would be so cool to have both Okada and Sasha or Mercedes.
We don't know what it's going to be. She
Yeah,
filed some more
she trademarked-
trademarks. Yeah.
And I want to say it was like Banks spelled Banques or something like
Yes.
that.
Yes.
So
I missed that. Wow.
Mhm.
This is why I hang out with you guys. You catch me up on what I missed. Speaking of what we missed from the week, gentlemen, as we wrap up here, I got 3 quick hitters for us. Number 1, TNA terminated the contract of Scott D'Amore, former president. This really caught me off guard. This news came out on Wednesday. The official verbiage on their press release said the move aims to further integrate TNA wrestling into Anthem's entertainment group. And D'Amore had been a part of TNA since 2003. Seems really over with the talent. So we don't know much more behind the scenes, but that really stuck out to me. Final 2 points. Phoenix basketball. The Phoenix Mercury acquired Kalea Copper from the Chicago Sky. The Suns acquired Royce O'Neal. It would seem that both organizations have championship aspirations. The Suns for this year, the Mercury heading into next year. I try not to get my hopes up. We'll see what happens with both of those new acquisitions. And then finally, Abbott Elementary season 3 is here. I caught up on episode 1. It continues to be my favorite show on TV. I love it so much, and I want Janine and Greg to become an item. So we'll see what happens. But Abbott Elementary is back, and that makes me happy. Brad, what do we miss from the week?
Probably a lot. We crammed in a lot of AEW talk, a little bit of WWE talk, and we missed everything in between. It's hard to think of anything outside of a giant 48-foot foam wall that is currently laying down in the Marana High School auditorium that I desperately want to go and put up. What I missed this week was sleep. So between the late night, getting home on Wednesday, and it's just kind of a lot, man. George, what about you? What do we miss?
I think Tyler missed something else that went on with the Suns yesterday. Pretty sure Steph just put a dagger right into their heart. It was such a good game. But yeah, Steph is still him. Hit a 3 with
He is.
like 2 seconds left
He's my favorite player.
to ice the game. Well, 0.7 seconds left to ice the game. It was
Ridiculous
nuts.
shot. It was
Yeah.
ridiculous. I had a debate, George. Sorry to totally steal your shine here. I had a debate, or not a debate, but a conversation with a friend of mine recently who's never been a huge Steph Curry guy. And I told him weeks ago, I was like, yo, I think Steph is still in his prime. Like, I think he still is at the peak of his powers. And he wasn't really sold on it. I think this game, to my chagrin, I think this game reinforced that. Like, Steph is he's still incredible. And I don't think you can rule out the Warriors, even though this year's been really bumpy for them.
Yeah, it's like Steph and then everyone else. And he's just, I was upset they didn't make more moves at the deadline, but definitely I think the Warriors were like one of the first teams to like not try during the regular season and then go after it in the playoffs. I'm not saying like championship or anything, but Steph is that guy. Like any night he can heat up and go off.
Pistons are up to 8 wins. Still hoping for 15. They have a great shot on Wednesday to get a win.
Brad, I saw Killian Hayes. I think
they play the Suns, by the way.
That's right. Right.
They're gonna get
I saw Killian Hayes.
Yeah.
They were a little bit active this past week. Killian Hayes, number 7 pick in the 2020 draft, was released. Bojan Bogdanovic was traded to the Knicks. Quick temperature check on Detroit.
I'm okay with it. They needed to make moves, man. Like
they did.
I don't know. There's
It's rough, man. I'm feeling for you.
I mean, is the temperature check, if it goes up 2 degrees, but it was at negative 35 to begin with, is it really, you know what I mean? So we're here. We still have 8 wins. And we're 8 and 44.
Yes, you do.
So ask me again in the summer, and we'll see how the temperature check is. I'll stand in the sun first.
I will say this is something I love about the NBA too, is like the Pistons aren't guaranteed the number 1 spot in the lottery. Like I love that aspect. Oh yeah, I love that aspect because the NFL, the worst team gets the first pick. That is not the case in the NBA. You can be terrible and then not get your reward.
Yeah,
exactly. Well, it's a wrap.
I hear your little chuckle there.
Well, it's a wrap, guys. This was an absolute blast as always. Follow George on X at Niners94. That's Niners with a Z, NINERZ 94. Follow us at GIPod19. We thank you for being here, and we'll see you next week. Gimmick Infringement is a part of 19 Media Group. You can listen to us on Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you find podcasts. You can also find us on YouTube via the 19 Media Group channel. Please like, subscribe, comment, and share.